The Gravity Gardeners. Chapter 1. The Azure Plateau. The horizon's whisper hung in the void, a silver shard against the blood-orange veil of the Fungal Nebula. Inside, Dr. Aris Thorne was losing a battle against a smell. Whisper filter the olfactory senses. Now, he pinched the bridge of his nose, his eyes stinging even within the ship's sterile, recycled air. On the main viewport, the planet Mycelios turned, a world swaddled in perpetual twilight. It was a mosaic of deep umbers, lurid greens, and sickly, phosphorescent yellows, all cast in the dim crimson glow of its red dwarf sun. Filtration at maximum, Doctor. Atmospheric composition. High oxygen, 32%, high humidity, significant spore load. Biocompatible but aromatic. Nitrogen, methane, traces of exotic organic volatiles. Caution, respiratory irritants and potential neuroactive spores detected at lower altitudes. Neuroactive, Aris muttered, dragging a hand over his tired face. Just what the mission needed. He'd been on the fringes of Terran space for 18 months, and the loneliness was a constant companion. This planet, however, was aggressively social, assaulting every sense with its overwhelming presence. The initial scans had been clear: no chlorophyll-based life, no silicon deserts, just an unbroken global carpet of fungi on a scale that defied terrestrial logic. It was a biologist's dream and an aesthete's nightmare. Land us on that relatively stable-looking cap, Whisper. The big, slightly blue one, designate Azure Plateau. The descent was a turbulent baptism. The ship shuddered as it punched through layers of thick, spore-laden mist that clung to the hull like greedy fingers. Bioluminescent spores, like a billion drunken fireflies, swirled in chaotic vortices around the viewport. As they dropped lower, the sheer scale of the world revealed itself. The Azure Plateau was the cap of a single mushroom, its diameter easily spanning 2 kilometers. Its surface was a springy, moss-like secondary growth that emitted a soft, cyan glow, illuminating the landing site in an ethereal underwater light. The ship settled with a gentle sigh. Aris suited up, the hiss of his helmet seal a final barrier against the world outside. The airlock cycled, and the door slid open. The smell hit him like a physical blow. It was a thick, humid miasma of profound decay, of rich, wet loam, of cloying, overripe fruit fermenting in a warm basement. It was the smell of life and death locked in a frantic, fecund embrace. His environmental filters whirred, struggling to process the complex cocktail of organic volatiles. He took a cautious step onto the cap. The ground was surprisingly firm, yet resilient, like a well-packed peat bog. He took another. Grungy. He looked down. A small, brittle puffball, no larger than his thumb, had disintegrated under his boot. A cloud of iridescent spores erupted, swirling around his legs in a lazy, beautiful cloud before the planet's stubborn gravity pulled them back to the surface. Right, this whole planet is fertile, he grumbled to himself, activating his wrist-mounted bioscanner. Note to self, watch your step. Sweeping the scanner across the horizon, the data stream confirmed the visual spectacle. Forests of colossal stalks, like the pillars of forgotten cathedrals, soared into the crimson haze, their caps interlocking to form a vast, living canopy miles above. Below the edge of the Azure Plateau, the landscape fell away into deep valleys, where rivers of thick, glowing spore sludge moved with a syrupy slowness. Movement was everywhere. Swarms of chitinous insectoids, some as large as his hand, flitted between fungal structures, while small, furry hexapods scuttled through the undergrowth. Anomaly detected. Localized gravity variance, 50 meters east. Aris frowned. Gravity variance, how localized? He moved cautiously towards the indicated area. With each step, he felt a strange lightness seeping into his limbs. 10 meters in, he pushed off gently with his toes. To his astonishment, he floated nearly a meter off the ground, hanging in the air for a long second before drifting down as gently as a feather. A microgravity pocket. He jumped again, this time with more force. He soared, clearing 3 meters with ease, his stomach lurching with a mixture of thrill and terror before he landed with a soft, cushioned impact. Incredible. Whisper, what's the cause? Subterranean energy signatures correlate with gravity anomalies. Hypothesis: planet-wide mycelial network acts as a gravitic regulator. Specific nodes or gardens manipulate local spacetime. Gardens, Aris repeated, a slow smile spreading across his face. So the planet gardens its own gravity. For an hour, he experimented, mapping the boundaries of the low-G zone, his scientific mind alight with the implications. This wasn't just a fungus world, it was a biomechanical marvel. Then a deep, resonant thrum vibrated up through the soles of his boots, a sound felt more in the bones than heard by the ears. It was low, harmonious, and powerful, emanating from the very heart of the world. He moved to the plateau's edge, his heart hammering against his ribs. Peering over into the shadowed valley below, his breath caught in his throat. Emerging from the dense fungal understory was a creature that defied scale. It was colossal, a living mountain of dark, fibrous tissue that shifted with a slow, tectonic grace. Its body was a rough, six-legged form, like compacted peat moss and ancient tree roots sculpted by eons. Its head was indistinct, but 2 massive, slow-blinking eyes, each larger than the horizon's whisper and the color of tarnished bronze, dominated its front. They held a deep, alien patience. But its most astonishing features were its arms. 2 enormous, trunk-like appendages, covered in coarse, root-like cilia, reached out with a ponderous, deliberate grace. One limb gently touched the base of a towering fungal spire nearby. As Aris watched, the very air around the spire's base shimmered, like heat haze on a summer road. His bioscanner chirped urgently. Gravity field intensifying locally. Observe. The spire, which had a slight lean, visibly straightened, its internal bioluminescence pulsing with a brighter, steadier rhythm. Tiny, damaged sections on its stalk seemed to knit together under the invisible pressure. The massive creature, the gardener, then moved its other limb to a different area, near a slow-flowing river of glowing sludge. It touched the ground, and the scanner registered a sharp decrease in local gravity. The river's flow accelerated, carrying a clog of debris away. "It's tending the garden," Aris whispered, the awe in his voice a palpable thing. "Adjusting gravity to heal, to clean, to nurture. Whisper, are we looking at sentience? Neural structure vast but simple. Communication, low-frequency vibrations through mycelial network. Primary drive, maintain ecological balance via gravitic manipulation. Symbiotic relationship with fungal biomass. Intelligence, debatable, purpose, unambiguous." Aris stood there for a long time, watching the gardener work. It was a humbling sight, a testament to the universe's boundless creativity. He felt a surge of the old passion, the reason he had left the crowded core worlds for the silent, unknown frontiers. Here was a mystery, a truth, a wonder. He spent the next few days in a state of blissful discovery. He mapped the treacherous landscape, learning to identify the subtle visual cues of high-G pockets and low-G zones. He documented symbiotic relationships and began to decode the complex, vibrating song of the mycelium, which Whisper translated into a mesmerizing, if alien, symphony. It was on the fourth day, while taking a sample from a smaller, vibrantly orange fungal cap nestled between two garden-attended spires, that he found it. A patch of sickly, iridescent purple. It was stark against the healthy colors of the ecosystem. He reached out to touch the fungus beneath it, and it crumbled to dust at the lightest pressure. Worse, the purple growth seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, emitting a faint, high-pitched whine that set his teeth on edge. His scanner screamed a warning. Analysis: aggressive parasitic fungus. Designation: glitter blight. Emits antifungal compounds and disruptive resonance, spreading rapidly via airborne microspores. A cold dread, deeper than any he had felt upon arrival, coiled in Aris's gut. He scanned the surrounding area. Moory patches of the vile purple gleamed in the shadows, some no larger than his hand, others spanning several meters. Near one of the larger patches, a cluster of the furry hexapods lay dead, their small bodies desiccated and covered in a fine purple dust. Then the deep, familiar thrum vibrated through the ground. A gardener was approaching the blighted cap, its massive, bronze eye fixed on the purple growth. With the same deliberate grace he had admired days before, it reached out a root limb, aiming to touch the afflicted area, to crush it with intensified gravity. As the tip of its cilia brushed the edge of the glitter blight, the purple growth flared. A visible shockwave of distorted, shimmering energy rippled outwards. The gardener recoiled as if electrocuted, a movement so violent it shook the entire fungal structure. A deep, pained groan, a sound of tearing earth and splintering wood, vibrated through the mycelium and up into Aris's bones. Where the cilia had touched the blight, the gardener's dark, fibrous tissue was now stained a sickly, luminous purple. The color was spreading inward like a fast-acting poison. Warning: glitter blight is infecting gardener tissue, disrupting its gravitic modulation ability. Biological and gravitic integrity compromised. Aris stood frozen, watching the colossal being of order and balance shudder in confusion and pain. The harmonious thrum of the world now had a discordant, screaming note woven into its fabric. He looked from the suffering giant to the pulsating, arrogant purple patch, and knew, with a certainty that chilled him to his soul, that he was no longer just an observer. He was a witness to the beginning of an end, and if this garden was to survive, the gardener would need help.